I said, hey, we need a great cameraman to come. Don't we worry. We're all here.
You ready to go? Okay. Thank you all for being here today. This morning, we realized here in Pioneer Park one of the worst fears that I have as the police chief. One of our citizens died. And I think it's very appropriate if we all take a moment of silence to remember this individual, because one person lost in our community is far too many. So if you'll join with me for 1 second, please. Thank you very much. This morning, as many of you know, an individual was asleep in a tent here in Pioneer Park. And while it's still under investigation, it appears at this point that it is more than likely a carbon monoxide poisoning from a propane heater and potentially an overdose from drugs, illicit drug use. And as I started out saying, the loss of one individual is far too many. As I understand this movement, and I'm certainly not here to speak for Occupy, either here in Salt Lake or anywhere in the country, but I think the message of the movement is the fact that 99% of our population is being minimized or marginalized by 1%. Well, today we marginalized even further one of our own citizens. We cannot allow this to take place. We are so fortunate here in Salt Lake City to have service providers that care greatly for the well-being of all members of our community. And as I think about the incident this morning, one of the first things that comes to mind is, would have this individual passed away had he been in the care of the 4th Street Clinic, of the shelter, or any one of the other Catholic community services? And while we'll never know, the possibility that he may still be here is one that we can't overlook. Having said that, I come here today not to issue mandates or edicts, but to actually ask for the cooperation of everybody. We can no longer tolerate individuals camping on our streets. It has been demonstrated not only with the unfortunate incident early this morning, but a large fight that occurred the other night, that we are unable to adequately care for individuals who are camping here. And we have, as I said before, many, many options for them to participate and to get the care that they need. Now, having said that, I think you know my reputation personally. I think it's been demonstrated what my officers and how they respect individuals. We will work with you. I commit to work with you to find avenues that you can express your free speech. It just can't be done through camping on our streets or in our parks, because the risk to even one individual is far too great, but the risk to many is significant. So what I'm doing is I'm asking those people who are currently camped at any location in our city that beginning this afternoon immediately, and in fact a lot of discussion was had, what is the risk we take allowing even one more day? Might we lose someone else? What potentially could occur? But what we're asking is, beginning immediately, that those of you start looking for avenues. If you need help or assistance, I have all the service providers, and I'll introduce them and allow a few of them to say some things. To get with them, they will be working overtime. They don't know that yet, but I'm sure they have some anticipation, as will my police officers, to facilitate you getting the care that you need, whether that's shelter, whether that's meals. But I'm going to ask everyone that we have to clear the park by tomorrow at sunset. There will be some of you, right, that believe, and I respect that completely, that it is necessary to be arrested for your cause, to prove a point. And let me assure you that if that is what you desire, that will be done with the respect and dignity that each and every one of you deserve, as well as each and every one of my officers. Right? We will facilitate avenues where if people would like to receive citations for remaining after that point, or if they would actually like to be booked to jail. This will not be police officers in riot gear. This will be police officers standing with me, right, facilitating that peacefully. And so, sincerely, I ask for your cooperation, because we cannot afford, while I respect your right to free speech, and in fact, I will do all I can to guarantee that you have an avenue to express yourself. Again, we cannot allow the camp to continue anywhere in our city. With that, I'd like to take just a moment and recognize some of the people who are here, and I know I'll miss a few of them. Pamela Atkinson, who most of you know, who is an outspoken, more than just an advocate, a sweetheart to everyone in the community, is here with me. I'm going to give Pamela a moment to speak. And then we also have here Joel Hunt and Dr. Tanya Collins from the 4th Street Clinic, Mark Mejia from Catholic Community Services, Carrie Kramer from the Health Department is here with us, David Everett from our Mayor's Office, Chief of Staff is here with us. We have numerous parks employees here, again, to begin right away to help facilitate. The one thing that I want everyone to be aware of, because, I mean, there is a lot of stuff in the park right now, and I understand, again, your concern and care for your property. If, in fact, your desire tomorrow is to be arrested, I simply ask that prior to that, please make sure that you have your property away and cared for. Because at some point we will have to allow the park services just to clean up the park. And things that are not readily identifiable or somebody standing there, it will be very difficult. And so I respect all your personal property, and we certainly don't want to disadvantage anybody. So with that, I'm going to give it a little time to Pamela. I'll certainly answer some questions afterwards.
Thank you. Many of our homeless friends have great needs, but meeting those needs takes a certain amount of training, education, and expertise. It doesn't matter how kind and compassionate we are. If there's a homeless friend who needs case management, who needs some mental health treatment, who needs some medical treatment, we have the experts in the community to take care of them. And I know the people who of the Occupy Salt Lake have been trying, but we have services available with experts to help many of our homeless friends who have these needs here. We have food at St. Vincent's at lunchtime and also in the evening, 7 days a week. We have the medical clinic just across the street with some incredible clinicians. We have the road home that still has beds open. We have the overflow shelter out at Midvale that still has room for families. We need to take care of our homeless friends in the proper way with the most expert care that we have. And this kind of tent city is not the kind of environment that helps people. You may provide food here and a caring kind of attitude, but that is not sufficient. In order to avoid any more incidents such as last night or any other incidents, we need to refer our homeless friends to the many services that are available with our experts. Thank you.
With that, happy to take some questions. Let me just say that this will be applied equally across the city. And obviously it is just representative of Salt Lake City. I only speak for Salt Lake City itself. But we will be happy to facilitate people getting their message across. Daytime, please come use the parks. After hours, for meetings and those types of things, we will certainly work to facilitate that. But we just cannot allow people to camp any longer. So with that, questions, please.
Chief Rink, you said that at the beginning it looks like it could be propane then and also drug overdose.
Yes, and we'll really only know the medical examiner has taken custody of the individual, and we'll only know after his work.
Will you be releasing the results of the medical examiner's report? Is this non-exposure state? Will anybody ever know what happened?
Oh, absolutely. We'll release the cause of death. I mean, we always do. And I mean, so you understand the process that we went through here. We actually called out our homicide unit because we had no idea exactly what the cause of death was at the time. And so that's a preliminary investigation that's been conducted. And at the point that we actually do get the medical examiner's findings, we'll make a determination of exactly what the cause of death was.
Hey, Chief, with the federal Occupy Federal folks the other day, they had a deadline of the next morning to get out. But then, you know, you worked with them, and it wasn't until, I think, the following 24 hours later. How stern is tomorrow's sunset deadline? Will you start arresting people if they don't leave at tomorrow's sunset?
It is our intention at this point. But again, the arrest, right? I'm hopeful that we don't have to. We will facilitate arrest if that's as people desire in order to get their message across and express their point, right? But we're not here. What we hope to do is work throughout the remainder of today and tomorrow to facilitate everybody peacefully moving and getting help and the services they need.
So it's not as strict.
It's not, but I mean, I'll tell you what, beginning tomorrow evening, we can no longer allow anyone to camp in the park, and we will have to take action.
Does it make you feel like, does it make you second guess the decision to allow them to be here in the first place?
Boy, that's a hard question. Second guess? Maybe a little bit. But as I spoke to the group. Many of you were here and listened to that conversation that took place. And we actually spoke specifically about this as colder weather comes. The drug use that was occurring here. Propane heaters and those, this can be dangerous, as well as the winters in Salt Lake. And we cannot risk a single individual. Every year we honor homeless individuals who have lost their lives in Salt Lake City, here in the park, coming up in December. And now we're going to add one to it because of this particular encampment that took place. And so to second guess, all I second guess is, could we save that individual or any other individual? The primary concern of the police department is the health and well-being of every single one of my community members.
Chief Burbank, this is with all due respect to the homeless service providers here, but there's a real concern in Occupy that they don't have nearly the funding, and there's a gigantic, huge portion of the homeless population here who is dissatisfied with the services that are provided and would prefer to be in another environment. I respectfully challenge the idea that this could have been prevented without the encampment, because people die here long before there was any Occupy, and that has to do with services that a lot of people in the community find inadequate, as hardworking as I know all the service providers are.
No, and I respect your opinion, but the thing that you have to realize is that we have altered our ability to provide services to our homeless population because of this encampment.
How so?
Because you have people here who are not taking advantage of the services because of services available here.
But isn't that a good question to ask why?
Oh, absolutely a good question.
So what do you think the answer to that is?
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people standing behind me who have a lot more experience in what that is. But certainly a question that we want to look at, because our goal has always been to end homelessness, and I'll tell you what, we've been very effective. Last year was one of the first years that I can ever remember in my 20-year career where the homeless shelter was not full, ever. There was always bed space available for someone to go. That's significant. Years past, we have always bused people to other locations because the capacity was tremendous.
But isn't that illustrative? All we have here is a tent city with some free food, and people would prefer that rather than, the cycle that we see a lot with substance abuse here is people can stay in the shelters when they're not using, but then they go use, and they will be camping out on the streets regardless of whether Occupy is here or not, and then they go back to the shelters when they're not going to be using again. Can you guarantee that shutting down Occupy is going to prevent any more deaths like this in Pioneer Park this year?
You know what? I'd be pretty comfortable because I haven't had a death in Pioneer Park specifically for a long time.
Right? Are you sure about that?
Absolutely.
When was the last one?
That. I couldn't tell you for sure.
Okay. I think we should wait until we know for sure.
Well, that's fine, right? And you're entitled to your opinion. But what I can guarantee, right, is that we will not have deaths here in the evening from exposure, from overdoses, or from carbon monoxide poisoning.
You'll guarantee that?
Well, I'm pretty comfortable with that if nobody's in the park after that.
And how would you feel if, the rest of Occupy is not at all confident in that we believe that, in fact, the only thing that's going to be prevented by shutting down Occupy is the attention that's being brought to this death. When these deaths do happen, there may be 1 or 2 inches in the Salt Lake Tribune or something, and then it's passed. Look at all the attention that we're bringing to people who, again, whether they're right or wrong, feel dissatisfied with the services that are provided and are instead choosing something that's far more rudimentary. I think what's actually going on is a lot of embarrassment of all the attention being brought to this death as opposed to the death itself. What do you think of that idea?
I would have to just disagree.
Is this every encampment that's going to be close
Yes.
between the one in Gallivan Plaza?
The same rules will apply equally to everybody. Please.
Everybody was to pack up and go into the homeless shelter. Do they accommodate everybody right now?
You know, that's a question that we'd have to ask, but we will certainly do all we can in order to accommodate them. I believe that we can with the overflow that's in place, that if in fact everyone decided that was the best option for them, that we would find places for them, yes.
So that might be like the overflow Midvale?
Yes, the overflow has been Midvale. Like I said, last year we didn't have to utilize the overflow in Salt Lake City. So I'd have to see. I'm certainly not committing any of the service providers.
Were you aware prior to the Occupy movement that there's a huge portion of the homeless population that would take any opportunity to not use the services that are already being provided and live in another setting?
You know, you can stand and question my position, but I'll tell you what, I believe personally, especially, that my position on panhandling in Salt Lake, my position on how the homeless are dealt with on a regular basis by my police officers, I have certainly done all that I can personally to ensure that there is not a single individual that is marginalized or mistreated. So while it's not perfect, right, and no system is, we do all we can, and I will continue to work on that.
Is it even close to adequate? The funding that we're providing to homeless services, is it even close to adequate?
Well, let me pose an interesting question to you. How much funding do you think it takes for the city and my police officers to support this movement? And would that funding be better utilized going to the homeless shelter as opposed for police officers and everyone else? How much funding do you think was spent here to deal with this?
That's a valid conversation, but I think the question that I raised is valid too. Is it even close to adequate how much we as a society are putting into homeless services?
Absolutely not. Because as long as we have one single person who has to live on the street, not by choice, and I mean that's difficult because there are individuals who choose, but when we have a single individual that not by choice has to live on the street, that's unfortunate. We need to do all we can to change it.
And I mean, isn't bringing awareness to these issues a necessary component to doing something?
Absolutely, and you are welcome to bring all the awareness that you want to. Camping, however, is not one of those methods at this point. Please, did you have a question?
Yeah, we just want to borrow you for a minute to go live when you're ready.
All right, 1 second. Let me answer this.
I just want to say that I have my 21-year-old daughter out here with me, and we have been going to the shelters to get help, and nobody would help us. We have got more help out here since we've been out here than any place around here. And I put that on my grandson.
Well, thank you, and I can certainly appreciate that. I'll tell you what, there's been a tremendous effort here.
It's sad when it takes homelessness like this to get help for people that won't get help up there. And those are homeless shelters.
Well, and I have the resources behind that will certainly be happy to talk to you. All right, with that.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
Prior to Occupy, how long would it have taken, do you think, for that situation to have been discovered?
I'm sorry, what situation?
How long would it have taken to find someone who
Well, okay,
passed away?
that's a very interesting question because we believe that death occurred sometime around 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Was not discovered here until 10 o'clock this morning, right? 8 total hours. Had there been no tents or no place for someone to hide, that death would have been discovered almost immediately. And so that is a problem that exists here.
I'm not
So with that,
because
It's not just that bad. We've had maps. Go talk to the manager of map.
oh no, there have been some issues. So with that, thank you very much. We are here to work with you to help, and please, the dialogue can certainly continue over the next day. All right, thank you very much.
Chief.
Thanks.